Good evening and welcome to another parent workshop. Tonight's I am super excited about because our resident sponsor teacher and tech expert, Sarah Peterson, is here to talk to us about raising our kids in a digital world. So I'm just going to hand this over to Sarah, and I am going to be sitting here learning along with the rest of you guys. Sarah, thank you for coming and teaching us tonight.
Definitely. Thanks for the invite. So I just want to start off by saying I'm not an expert in this area. Years ago, I did a pilot with Common Sense to be their pilot program for the Common Sense educators around digital citizenship. I've always kind of trended towards having a concern in this area, and it might be maybe growing up as we've transformed into a digital age and then becoming a parent. It's just something to be aware of. And one of my dear friends, mentors, and colleagues came up with this quote years ago, and it's just kind of stuck in my brain. Technology is the pencil of the 21st century, and whether we want to acknowledge this or like it, it's the truth, which means we really need to teach our kids how to be literate in this space if we're handing them over a new tool to both read and write. And so with that, the best advice that I can give, and I think anybody could give, is start early and just create a culture of communication and clear expectations with your kids. This space is ever changing, and it's really important to develop the clear communication and then those clear expectations for kids. And as we go through this presentation, I'll have little ideas for you, and so some of those expectations are just little recommendations and tips. So as we start talking about some of the concerns that students might have, I'd like to focus a little bit about just technology use. And I know with COVID, things changed a little bit, and the amount of screen time that we all found ourselves, the amount seemed to increase a lot. But it might be something to think about for your children as you are navigating this space and we're transitioning to summer, that these age brackets can be really important in developing the quantity and quality of screen time that you have. So the American Psychological Association, at 0 to 18 months, maybe just consider avoiding all screen time at all, unless it's like photo review or video conferencing with family. From 18 months to 2 years, really keep that to high quality focused programming where you are actively monitoring your child and their use and having those conversations with them. And then from ages 2 to 5, about an hour a day, again, of quality programming, or letting them create something. And then once you get to ages 6 and up, you're at the point now where you should be establishing consistent and clear expectations. They're starting to use devices in more of their day-to-day lives and with school, and just establishing some of those expectations. And as a parent, this was a couple things that I had started early on in my family is devices sleep here, and I have a charging station where all of our devices get plugged in, my husband's, mine, and my kids now have tablets. They're now 8 and 10, but devices recharge at the recharging station and humans recharge in their bedrooms. And it's just this culture that we're trying to establish that has been that precedence from the time they were young, because sleep needs to be a priority. And if they have a device in their room, that temptation to get into stuff is also very present. But then it's also they're putting themselves in a place where I can't monitor them, and that's the precedent that we've set. Another idea is to model and maintain a device-free dinner. And this can be hard. Oh, it's so hard because there's always distractions. And now when everybody has a personal device that's pinging and making noise, it can be difficult. And so it's something to consider. And if you haven't started that culture from a young age, maybe consider trying to infuse it. And baby steps are a great place. You know, maybe once a week, once a month. Um, just have the devices set aside, have the TV turn off. And if you need a little bit of help supporting that, Common Sense actually has a movement called Device Free Dinner to help you navigate that if you need some supports in that. Um, there we go. So when we teach our kids to drive, we make sure that they're aware of this great responsibility and that there's risks and dangers associated. And we try our best to prepare them for these dangers before, you know, we let them go on their own. And I think that we should be better preparing our children um, when we hand them an internet-enabled device. It should be very similar to this idea of a driver's license, in that we've gone through these tests and these trials and conversations together. Unfortunately, because of the Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act, COPA, it restricts things like social media and gaming to students under the age of 13. And a lot of families think, oh, 13 is now the driver's license age for that internet-enabled device. And really that age 13 does not mean internet adulthood. It means it's the time more than ever in your child's development to get involved and to help scaffold their development in this life of connected devices. And that age 13 range is a really important age bracket that we'll get into soon. I'm not going to talk a lot about parental controls as a part of this conversation, but just some things to consider as you are, you know, navigating these safety nets with your students, that there are things out there, there are tools out there. There's filtering and blocking software, there's time limiting software, there's things that you can do to the browsers, and there's just straight monitoring tools. And there's so many of them out there. I don't really want to focus too much on any one, because so many of them could be specific to what your needs are. Part of this, I want to talk about just some of those things within your family that you might need to talk about in conjunction with these. And I don't want to make it sound like throw these softwares and these other supports out altogether. I guess what I'm trying to say is these are not a magic bullet, and they will never be the all-time fix for this this wheelchair ramp per se to get your kids into this environment and this safe push into the digital realm. It's really a combination of maybe some of these things and a culture of truth and awareness, what's out there. And it's going to have to be scaffolded age appropriately. And so in my house, I guess these are some of my notes that in my navigating this a little bit in my professional world and then jumping in as a parent. This isn't a complete list, but these are some of the online dangers and risks in broad categories that I'm trying to use as guides when I'm walking through this realm with my own children, and helping them navigate their digital world. And so content, privacy, cyberbullying, and cybersecurity are kind of those four main themes that I'm trying to focus on in scaffolding conversations with my own children. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those four things right now with you. The first one is content. And so again, I cannot hit all the points to all of these topics, but I'm going to try to hit just a couple of bullet points and things for you to think about. So earlier I had talked about, you know, sitting with a child, especially a young child, when they're working on their apps and their games and things like that. And you'll eventually start moving away from them. But what do you do what do they do and what do you do if they accidentally click on something? There's always ads or things that pop up. You need to be prepared for what your reaction is going to be. Oh, it's okay. Let's navigate this together. Where did you click? Let's backtrack a little bit, because the message that you want to send them is that it's going to be okay. You don't want to freak out, and that you are so happy that they came to you immediately with this problem. And starting that culture early is going to be better as they start navigating the real icky content that they could be getting in as they get older in their digital environment. And then as they start getting older, they're going to start getting more media, and they're going to start getting more advertisements, and they're going to start getting news and links from other people. And they're going to start asking themselves, is this real? Like, did that happen? And how do they go about backtracking and finding out what is the purpose for what is in front of me? Who created it? Why did they create it? And how do I check its validity? And just because I can put it on the internet does not mean it's true. And so those are some things to think about as you start diving into content with your kids, because the whole wide world is available to them when you give them an internet enabled device. And so some ideas for monitoring content. I think back to my childhood, and I think back to how frustrated I was when the only phone in our house was in the living room. And when a boy that I liked wanted to call me, everybody in the house could hear my conversation. There's a little bit of value in that. And so I guess I bring that point up, that one idea and something that I'm doing in my house is we have a computer station for the kids, and it is a very large desktop computer that is in a central location in the house. And they can have a little privacy while they're there, but at the same time, their screen use can be very easily monitored by walking by. That's very hard to do when you immediately are handing a young child a tablet or a phone. And so start thinking about those things early can be really helpful. So the next topic that I had talked about that's a pretty important one that you might want to address with your kids. And this is no small topic. This is a massive topic, and the breadth and the depth of this one is very big. I am starting right now. Again, I've got an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and we're talking about passwords, and why we have passwords, and why we lock our house, and why we keep certain things locked up, and why we do that. And these are big topics for parents. I want my kids to have a secure password, and I need to know what those passwords are for right now. And so what we're working towards is we have a little envelope in our kitchen, and any passwords that my kids have, and right now they're just educational passwords, but it's a great place to practice. Their passwords are in this envelope, and at any time they have access to it, and at any time I have access to it. And as they grow and maybe start getting gaming and social media accounts, they're always going to keep that password in that envelope, because I need to be able to spot check it at any time. And the message that I'm trying to send them is, I trust you, but I also need to monitor this space that you're in. And I want to build that trust, that I don't want to log in at all times, and I need to be able to check. And if I ever go and that password is different than what's on that envelope, then we've got a trust issue. The second one, and again, this privacy, this is such a big issue, but these are the ones that I'm kind of trying to focus on right now with the bigger picture with my kids, is stranger danger. This is a big one, and it's a really hard one for kids to grasp, but not everyone is who they appear to be online. And this can apply from everything in your kids' lives to social media, friends, to phishing, to predatory behavior. And it's a really important topic to have with your students, and that stranger danger really exists online as much as it does in the real and present world. The next one is that lens of exposure. And it's an idea, and it's a conversation about what additional information might you be sharing with a photo. And an example that I like to do with kids, and I've done it with high schoolers and younger kids, is I've actually shown them a picture of a football player after a tournament. And I asked the kids, like, what other information can you get based off of this photo? And it's really interesting what kids will tell you. They're like, wow, you can see that player's number, you can see that player's last name, you can see what school that player goes to, you can see what truck that player drives. And so just having kiddos analyze what other information they might be sharing and not even realizing it can be a really helpful activity, because a harmless social media post might not be so harmless in what it might share. And depending on how public that could be, it could make it, you could be sharing more information than you want to. And a really big message that I want my kids to know, and all kids, is the internet is a giant Sharpie marker. And once you put something out there, it can be really hard to retrieve. When I was in my educational technology master's degree, there was a campaign out that was Think Before You Post. And they made really great videos of one, for example, a girl posted a photo of herself online, and they made it the equivalent of a bulletin board at a high school. And they put this hard copy of the photo up on the bulletin board at the high school, and one person walked by and took the photo, and it immediately reappeared, and somebody else took it, and somebody else took it, and everybody that walked by this bulletin board in the hallway was able to take a copy of this picture. And it's a really good example of what can happen to your content when you get it out there and put it online. It can be really hard to retrieve sometimes. Even if you have a limited audience, it's out there and it's been put out there. And it's just something, those are just things to have kids think about. The idea that I have for privacy, and this is the message that I have over and over trying to message to my kids in all areas of their life, is that I trust them. I trust them completely. I don't trust everybody that's out there. And with an internet-able device, in some ways, you're opening the door to the world that's out there. And that's the message that I'm trying to teach them. And that's why things like passwords are the way to close the door to those things, or not even participating are the way to not let those things leak into your life. And so I can't emphasize this one enough, that making sure your child knows that you trust them and that you're building this trusting relationship, and you don't trust the other people that could be out there. And those are just some very important things to pass on to your children. Cyberbullying. Now, this is a deep topic too, but I don't want to go too deep into it. But it can happen publicly and it can happen privately. And sometimes being left out is also a form of bullying and cyberbullying. So I've heard stories of families say, my child, we're just not going to get them that internet-able device. And as they get older, they find that their child is a target because they don't have the device. And so just being aware of some of those things, that being left out in some ways can be a form of cyberbullying. Oftentimes you'll hear people say that, oh, if you're getting bullied, just ignore it or delete it. And I would advocate 100% in the opposite. Bullying is a form of harassment, and it is okay to tell your children, to let them know that any inappropriate communication with you is unwelcome and is unwanted. And I just can't emphasize that enough. If somebody is calling your child names, being mean to them, or soliciting for inappropriate things, letting your child know to stand up for themselves and say, this is unwelcome and unwanted, and those words are okay. This is unwelcome and unwanted, and it needs to stop. And And then also letting your kids know about some of those red flags that can happen with bullying or solicitation, like if someone's threatening you or requesting something from you, or they're asking you to keep a secret. You need to make sure your kids know that these are giant, giant red flags of not just bullying, but other solicitations too that can happen to kids online. And with that, I'd like to share a really great resource. And I'll put it in the chat. I have a whole bunch of links that I'm going to send here as soon as I stop this presentation. This is an amazing resource. It's called the Wait Until 8th campaign. And it's let kids be kids a little longer, and you can dive in and look at this. But the whole idea behind this is we're rushing our kids through childhood. Developmentally, they're not ready for an internet-enabled device until they're at the age of 13. And this group allows those talking points and support for parents who feel like they're getting pressured from their child, from society, from other parents to provide their kids with a device. And there's pledges that you can sign. And if you're in a really fantastic friend group, you can get your child's friends' parents together and take this pledge together, whether you take it online with this group or you do it with one another, and just say, we pledge to keep our kids device or internet device free until the age of 13, until we can help them navigate this world as they grow. I can't emphasize this Wait Until 8th campaign enough. I think that there's some great research, and I strongly encourage you to look at some of the resources that are listed here. And again, I will put some of these in the chat. I've got a whole group of links that I'm going to pop in the chat here shortly. And then the last thing that I want my own children to start thinking about as they navigate this world is cybersecurity. I've already mentioned passwords. They're important. They're what help us keep things locked up, and they keep things safe. I also am very aware that I want my kids to have current technology. Having an outdated browser or an outdated device there are security risks with having outdated equipment. I want my kids to know that they should not be sharing personal information. And I want them to know what personal information is, in case they're like, oh, I'm signing up for this account and they're asking me for this. Mom, is that okay? I want to draw attention to spam and phishing schemes. I want to teach them to be able to hover over links to see where those links are going to go, and if they're going to take me to the site that it says that it's going to. I want them to know that they are not a long lost prince, and there is no inheritance anywhere out there for them, and that no one should ever, ever ask for their social security number. They shouldn't ask for their bank account number, and never, ever ask for a password. I want them to know that there are things out there that can take a hold of your computer and hold the, malware and viruses and spyware, that those things are out there, and there's ways that you can protect yourselves. And the number one way is to be educated and to always be alert, This is a new realm of being a criminal out there. And also on the career side, there's also a career in this area. So something, another way to have a conversation with your kids. Impersonation is also another very frightening thing to be aware of as far as cybersecurity. People can impersonate someone else, or they can impersonate you. They can steal your identity, and identity theft is very, very, very real. And cybersecurity is a big one. One of the resources that I'm going to share with you here shortly has a little module that it's designed for students in grades 6 through 12, but I think it would be a great thing for families to do together. Cybersecurity is a really, there's a lot to talk about with cybersecurity, but I'm just trying to hit a couple points in tonight's presentation. So my idea and my tip for cybersecurity is passwords. It's one of the best things you can do, I think, to keep yourself safe in the cyber world. And I say to teach your kids that passwords are like underwear. They're best kept private to yourself and changed frequently. And that can be hard to remember all your passwords, but treat them like your underwear. They're very important. So now what? You have all this information, and what do you do with it now? Um, I would say dive in and grow with your child. This landscape is changing fast. It's going to keep changing. We're never going to have all the answers, and it's okay. Um, we're in a unique position also where some of us might be working with both our children and maybe parents who are we're growing in this realm, and we're working with two populations where we might need to know a little bit more. And I encourage you to do some learning on your own. Um, Another resource that I'm going to share with you is this Tech Talk Tuesday blog. And this is a great place to get some of that learning on your own, because you might not know what some of these topics are. You might not know the next cool thing coming down the line that your kids might be talking about. I really like this this Tech Talk Tuesday blog, because once a week they'll send you a post with content that you might not be aware of, or content that might be really hard to talk about. I mean, it might be hard to talk about violence in video games or pornography with your children, but these blog posts can give you talking points and research and things that are valuable, and conversations that, while they might be difficult, they could be very important to your child's growth. The PBS station, again, I'm going to put this link out there to you for this resource, has a quick learning module that you could join for your students, just learning more about cybersecurity. It starts off with a quick video, but then you get to jump in and learn a little bit more. And that resource is designed for ages 6 through 12. Again, I'll send that in the chat here shortly. And I just encourage you to look at these resources and join your child and do them with your child to learn more yourself. Common Sense has a family engagement toolkit that is changing and updated frequently. They have other bullet points. I could only fit these 4 in my slide deck, but they give you ideas and pointers and talking points for some of these harder topics like online privacy and safety and social media and devices. And it's a full toolkit for you, so you can kind of navigate it by age range and pick the resources that you want on there. Google has a whole learning series called Be Internet Awesome. And these are activities and modules that your child could actually walk through and get a better idea. And inside this module, there's actually a Google Digital Citizenship and Safety course where they learn more about some of those cybersecurity things and some of those safety and privacy things that I had talked about a little earlier. And then every now and then we get local events, and this one isn't necessarily related. Well, I guess it is related to raising digital kids, but this one was just from the UAA Big Question series, is how does social media affect human wellness? And, that is related to our digital consumption and growing digital kids. With all the platforms like TikTok and Instagram that they have out there, it can impact mental health, and our community recognizes that. And unfortunately, you often have to find events like this on Facebook. But I know that the Anchorage Museum has offered these conversations. I have seen other events pop up where it's starting to be talked about more openly, and it feels like more resources are becoming available for parents to navigate this realm and to learn and grow. I saw a quote a couple weeks ago that says, be nice to your parents. They graduated school without Google. And that can be very true. And because we graduated without Google, we have a different lens to navigate with our children, and whether we like it or not, to remind them that technology is the pencil of the 21st century, and there's the literacy that's needed to navigate this world is different. And it's a new world and it's changing rapidly. And those are the resources that I have for you. That was a lot of information. I am going to stop my screen share and put some of those resources in the chat really quickly. And then Katrina, while I do that, I'm going to turn it back over to you real fast.
I thought you were going to let us ask questions, because even though you said you weren't going to talk to us, I would still really love to know how you as a mom, when you hand your kids an iPad, some of the things that you have locked down and some of the settings that you have used. I think that would be really helpful if you're up for sharing that after you share the links. And you're muted, Sarah.
Wow. Well, thank you. Well, believe it or not, Katrina, I know this shocks most parents, but I've actually locked nothing down on my children's iPads. I have really tried to develop that level of trust with my kids, and we're just now jumping to the world of iPads, honestly. What I do with my kids with iPads is they have a set amount of screen time, and they may do activities that they can do that are pre-approved by me. And those are either educational games. If they are fun games, they're games that I've chosen, and they never have any ads in them ever, because they always accidentally click on things. And they are always required, they're not allowed to do it in their bedroom. They're required to be in a space where I can see them. And if I say screens at any point within seconds, I had better see their screen, or else they're going to lose their device. And so those are some of the things that I have done. I guess the only setting that you can say that I do use on the device is just to help them monitor their time, because even for me, I can find that time can get away. And so if you are on an iOS device, a lot of people don't know this, and I'm going to try to show it in the camera because it's hard to see. So if I wanted to set my timer for about 1 hour and 16 seconds, if I select right here when this timer ends, and I go all the way to the bottom, I have this option called stop playing. So if I were to give my child has this Lego Jurassic World or Jurassic Park game that he likes to play, but he can only play it for a couple of minutes. If I say you can play it for 15 minutes and I want you to stop playing, if he sets that stop playing, the app on his iPad goes black and it returns to the home screen, and then he knows his 15 minutes is up. So
That's super helpful, Sarah. Thanks for sharing those.
sorry, I know a lot of parents, they want the restrictions and the safe search and what do you do? And I haven't got there yet with my kids, because I'm almost to the point where we kind of need to accidentally click on something, or we almost accidentally need to stumble onto something. And I hope it's nothing too inappropriate, but I want to have those conversations when they happen on what to do. Yeah. There's a lot of resources inside the chat. And if I could direct your attention to any of them, my top 2 are that Wait Until 8th and Tech Talk Tuesday. I just think that those 2 things are so empowering to parents. The Wait Till 8th is helping me a lot. My 10-year-old just recently is like, I want a phone. I want a phone. And we didn't think it would happen. And so we're using a lot of those things, and we're talking about maybe getting her a flip phone, but not that internet-enabled device. And then the Tech Talk Tuesday, it's just valuable when things come up and you want to talk and have conversations. It can give you talking points for things to talk about. I remember a family when Pokemon Go first came out, and the kiddos couldn't understand, why anybody could see inappropriateness with it. And the Tech Talk Tuesday blog that came out around that time kind of addressed, well, what if you were at a cemetery and somebody was having a funeral or paying their respects to somebody, and a bunch of kids are running around going and finding their Pokemon characters? Like, is that one of those ethical places and it was like, oh, and having those conversations with kids, they're like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. So that Tech Talk Tuesday blog can be really helpful for some of those things.
Well, I'm super excited to go explore a bunch of these. I have had 2 teenagers, and I still feel like I have so much to learn in teaching my kids how to be healthy and safe and have a great relationship with technology. So thanks for equipping me and all of the rest of us to have these conversations. I really appreciate it, Sarah.
Definitely. You have a great night, Katrina.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies, for coming, and the rest of you have a wonderful evening.